February 5th, 2020. Joe here at Simple Life Show. I appreciate everybody for joining me today. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share, do all the good social media stuff to keep the rational voices out in front where they belong. So this article, I missed it by 2 days. This came out from Hip Latina, and it was a direct response because there was a lot of backlash over the Super Bowl halftime show. I know most people out there just simply don't care about it, but I did want to talk about it for a minute or two. So they came out with this article. It says, "Dear white people, the Super Bowl halftime show wasn't too sexy. You're just racist." I happen to remember back when Maroon 5 took his shirt off, or the lead singer Maroon 5 took his shirt off. There was a lot of backlash over that. Of course, a lot of the women out there thought it was pretty good. And then there was plenty of men out there that loved this halftime show. As well, they probably should. And we talked about that in a previous video. But the fact is that it has nothing to do with racism. The majority, I would have to say 99% of the tweets and the social media posts concerning the halftime show was about how racy it was, not how racist it was. And I think they just forget that. Yeah, I mean, J-Lo has a great body, Shakira has a great body, all the dancers had a great body. So what? I mean, do we have to sexualize it all the time? Do we have to put kids in cages to make a political point all the time? I mean, do we have to, play on the S&M and bondage that both Shakira and J-Lo were doing the entire time? Can we skip all the symbolism? Can we skip all the satanic symbolism as well? Of course, with the Venus sign, which is the morning star and all that kind of stuff. Everything has to be symbolism. It all has to be related to some sort of brainwashing. Why can't we just have entertainment anymore? It all has to be loaded with something. That's all I'm going to really say about it. I mean, it's if you have some, if I have something wrong, or anybody else has something wrong with something, if they don't feel like they approve of something, well, you're just a racist. Yeah, we've heard it all before, right? It's just a simple way to shut up the opposition, to shut up any kind of opposing or just alternative viewpoint. But any kind of alternative viewpoint is automatically opposition. So AOC was recently on Twitter. As you know, the State of the Union address was last night. We'll get to that. And of course, we'll get to Nancy Pelosi's tantrum. If you haven't heard about that, it's all over the news, been all over the news. But AOC had something to say about Rush Limbaugh. And here she is in her infinite wisdom.
Reaction to Rush Limbaugh receiving the Presidential Medal of Freedom. First of all, the Presidential Medal of Freedom is an extraordinarily sacred award. We're talking about putting someone on the same level as Rosa Parks, for example, in terms of their contributions to American progress. Rush Limbaugh is a virulent racist, but even just on top of that, to do it in the middle of a State of the Union and not even dignify it with its own ceremony as it has, there's all sorts of norms that are being violated, not just for people's humanity, but also it truly just cheapens the value of it.
So AOC's main point is that the Presidential Medal of Honor cheapifies the entire thing. I don't think she really understands what the Presidential Medal is. So we'll go to Wikipedia here, and we could have went to the White House, because the White House has something on this as well. But it kind of breaks down all of the Presidential Medals of Honors that have been given, I believe, since, looks like, probably John F. Kennedy. So when we look at the Presidential Medal of Honor, and I just typed in Trump, right? Trump. There's 21 references, and some of those are actually in annotations. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4. So he has less than 20 over 3 years, right? So if we type in Obama and we go past the annotations, there is 129 Presidential Medals of Honor in the 8 years that Obama was in office. In almost 4 years, Trump has given less than 20. So AOC's entire argument falls apart when he says it cheapifies it. If we look at all of the categories here for the Presidential Medal of Honor, we'll just start at the top, all the way at the top. And the Presidential Medal of Honor is for Americans. It's a civilian honor, and it's the highest, well, at least one of the highest civilian honors that you can receive. But so many different types of people get this type of thing. And sometimes it seems kind of random, too. I mean, look at what Obama gave Ellen DeGeneres a Medal of Honor. Obama gave Lorne Michaels a Presidential Medal of Honor. He gave the person that created Saturday Night Live the Medal of Honor. Okay, so if you want to talk about cheapifying things, maybe you should do a little bit more research, AOC, before you open your mouth again. But here it is. It goes from architecture, art, dance, movie and theater. Look at all the movie and theaters. Kirk Douglas, James Cagney, Meryl Streep, Steven Spielberg, Robert Redford, Robert De Niro, Tom Hanks. Literature, obviously, T.S. Eliot, big one. John Steinbeck, all these. Music. Look at all these the musicians, right? Donald Trump gave Elvis Presley one as well, which I thought was kind of interesting. Bruce Springsteen got one. Okay. Photography, business and economics, computing, education, history, humanitarian, attorneys and judges, journalism, radio. Paul Harvey got one. Lyle Thomas and Rush Limbaugh. So I don't see how it cheapifies. As far as those who are on the radio, there's only 3 since Gerald Ford. So Gerald Ford, George Bush, and Donald Trump gave one to people in radio. And if anyone deserves one in conservative radio, I would have to say there's a lot of people out there, including Dennis Prager, Larry Elder, of course, Rush Limbaugh as well. And, of course, Rush Limbaugh is going through a lot of turmoil right now. He was just diagnosed with late-stage lung cancer. My mom died from late-stage lung cancer. It's deadly. Of course, there's a lot of current breakthroughs that are coming right now and going through in the medical community, and people are surviving at a higher clip now with this deadly disease. But that doesn't make it insignificant either. It's very significant. You could say Rush Limbaugh is a racist, but I mean, this man's been on the radio for decades, and yeah, he's a conservative. It doesn't mean that he hates black people or any kind of person of color. Okay? When you're on the radio, and there's a lot of people on the radio, sometimes you speak from the cuff, and people, sometimes they can take that out of context. But for some reason, it's never okay if you're if you're with the wrong political affiliation. That's what I just don't understand. It's a lot of hypocritical. Television, Lucille Ball, Johnny Carson, all these people, Oprah Winfrey, Lorne Michaels, Ellen DeGeneres, people in medicine, military, philosophy, activism, diplomacy, environmental intelligence. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. Look at all the first ladies that got Presidential Medal of Honors, right? Members of Congress, presidents, vice presidents. Joe Biden got one. Other political figures, religion. Bet you didn't know that. Look at all these, right? Look at all the religious people. Science, sports. Look at all the athletes. So I just don't understand AOC's entire argument that it cheapifies the whole thing. People in radio are very, very. They're not represented very well. So I would have to kind of say, well, the people in radio are it's not very diverse because it doesn't have as many people in conservative radio. We can make that argument if we want, but that's kind of ridiculous. That's splitting hairs, but I think that's what the Democrats are really doing right now. They're just kind of splitting hairs, and they're kind of screwing themselves in the next election. I think Van Jones said something. I don't have a clip of him, but he recently, over the last day or so, said that the DNC needs to, and Democrats in general, need to pay attention to what's happening, especially with the black vote. It is a lot of it's going towards Donald Trump, and they had to figure out why. I think the answer is pretty clear, is that we finally do have a president that does care about the middle class and trying to grow the economy. Yes, you could make certain arguments that this is an artificially inflated economy. You could make very persuasive arguments that it's a continuation of the Obama administration. But we also have to understand that we have to look at the Obama administration as a whole. If we look at it a whole versus Trump, then that's not a really good fair comparison either. You're comparing apples to oranges a lot of the times. We have to look at the real numbers. We have to kind of see how they affect people because, when we start extrapolating these very vague types of ideas about the way the economy is going, then you lose your entire voting base because they don't think that way. They think about how much I'm getting in my paycheck every week or two. Are groceries becoming less affordable? Are my kids going to be able to see their doctor? Am I going to be able to see my doctor? These are the things that regular Americans think about. And I think that Trump, instead of, and this is one thing I will agree with, instead of trying to prop this economy up with, with all kinds of different like gags and stuff for little Band-Aids or whatever you want to call them for tax cuts for corporations and billionaires and so forth, which is true. But I think that if he really wants to maintain and he wants to finish out his 8 years on a good run, he needs to start really focusing on the middle class. And some could say that the middle class really isn't shrinking. Some people are going up and some people are going down, but that's really a false argument. There always has to be a middle class, because otherwise you'll just have billionaires and the impoverished. So, yeah, I'm not quite sure I really understand that one at all. Of course, we do remember Nancy Pelosi yesterday in her fit of rage, ripping up Donald Trump's speech.
Bless you, and God bless America. Thank you very much.
So, yeah, I mean, when I first saw that this morning, because I didn't even watch the State of the Union address last night. I was pretty tired, and I just went to bed. I did not hardly get any sleep because I was waiting up for that stupid caucus, right? And I normally go to bed around 9:30, 10 o'clock. I stayed up till about 1 o'clock just waiting and then looking at all the chaos that was going on. Now, there's some people that, actually a lot of people in the liberal media who are saying, yeah, this was a really great thing that Nancy Pelosi did, ripping up the speech and so forth. Here on Washington Examiner, disgusting. Jim Acosta slammed for accusing, this was about the racism for Medal of Freedom. Let's just actually talk about this, and then we'll get back to the ripping. So Jim Acosta is slammed for accusing Rush Limbaugh of racism after Medal of Freedom Award. We already talked about how often this thing is given out, especially in the Obama administration. Way less in the Trump administration. So if Trump's doing anything, he's actually giving it more credibility instead of just doling it out like anything else. So it says here, he was trying to make appeals to the African-American community, Acosta 48 observed about Trump's State of the Union address Tuesday night. It can't be forgotten that he was awarding the Medal of Freedom to Rush Limbaugh, who has a history of making derogatory comments about African-Americans. So I think, overall it's a wash. And then Lauren Ingram says it's disgusting. Jim Acosta is disgusting. That is a disgusting comment. Disgusting comment and false. Ingram stated in defense of Limbaugh, who recently announced he was diagnosed with advanced lung cancer. Every time they lose, they cry racism. Every time they lose, they say you're mean, horrible, xenophobe. It's insult after insult. What they accuse Trump of is what they do routinely. I think there's a lot of truth to that. I think that even on the basis of just pure psychology, humans in general are very quick to point the finger at other people when they are guilty of the same thing. It's almost like a defense mechanism because they don't want the fingers to be pointing at them. They don't want their own sins uncovered. So we are living in this he said, she said type of culture right now politically, and we're living in a very hypocritical type of environment where one side is just parroting what one side wants them to either say or think, just as well as the other side is doing that. That's why I said it's so important to keep an open mind about everything. Do your own research. Use your rational mind that God gave you for what its intended use is. So Nancy Pelosi, this was CNN actually. She was back to the ripping thing, ripping up of the State of the Union address. CNN obviously goes into quick cover mode for Nancy Pelosi when they come out with their segment just right after that happened.
Who has admonished her caucus on more than one occasion to, present themselves with decorum and so on and so forth. She was just angry.
She ripped up the speech.
She ripped up the speech. I was just texting with a source close to her who said, I know this is probably a little obvious, but that was not planned. That was an emotional moment. That was a genuine reaction to what she just heard the president do.
She ripped it up and then she threw it
and she threw it down.
Yeah.
And there are lots of reasons for that. Well, I mean, just on the substance of it, one of many reasons she would argue is because of what you just said about health care. Him telling the American people and the world that he thinks that pre-existing conditions should be...
He's going to guarantee it. It's a guarantee.
Should be guaranteed when he is, in fact, in court fighting to...
So CNN, obviously, and along with all the other liberal media, including AOC herself, there wasn't a video of her talking about it like she likes to do, just like Elizabeth Warren likes to do, is look kind of awkward in the camera and just kind of just say whatever comes to their mind. But Nancy Pelosi ripping that apart just wasn't an act of defiance. It wasn't because she was an empowered woman. It wasn't anything about Me Too or anything about stopping the horrible, racist, misogynist, xenophobe that is Donald Trump in the White House. It had to do with her own selfish interest. She is very embarrassed right now that all of this time that she has spent, all of these promises that she has made to the Democratic base has been ripped to shreds. Well, the only thing that's been ripped to shreds is really Nancy Pelosi's believability, her career, and anything else that you can think of. Okay, Nancy Pelosi, along with the rest of the Democrats who are just sitting on their hands throughout the entire State of the Union, not applauding to really much of anything. Now, there was a few that actually got up and applauded, and that's a good thing. But just like the last State of the Union, they all wore white. I'm surprised, honestly, they didn't wear black because they just felt like everything was dead. Well, the House is going to be dead here pretty soon because people are watching this. They don't think that people are actually watching what is going on in Congress, just like they weren't. They think people weren't watching what was going on in Iowa. Just like the healthcare.gov, when that first went up, it cost how many billions of dollars and it still didn't work. Just like that little app didn't work. It's Democrats trying to remain relevant all the time, pandering to their base and all this other kind of stuff, trying to pretend they aren't what they say the Republicans are. Okay, like I said, I used to be a Democrat, and I still am. I still believe in a lot of democratic principles, but I don't believe in this socialism or communism or anything like that, trying to say that all these things are good for this country. I think that we need to go back to a free market. We need to rid the crony capitalism. We need to rid the corruption. Just like Trump promised, he should be doing more of this. And if I have one bone to pick with the president, is that he is not going after corruption as much as he should. This is actually getting kind of ridiculous. He needs to do this a lot more. And he needs to make it well known. He needs to be more transparent. He needs to stop falling in this trap that the Democrats are trying to do. They are trying to hold everything up and trying to keep him occupied with this entire thing so he won't accomplish anything. And, he's done a decent job of looking past this kind of stuff. But he needs to really step up to the plate right now that all of this is over. Going into 2020, he really needs to step up the plate and bring some people to justice, bring this corruption out into the light of day. Because if he can do that, then that will mean other people will be willing to stand up as well and run for president. People will turn their backs on this twisted ideology that the Democrats and the liberal propaganda machine is trying to forward. People will turn their backs on it. They have to trust the American people to think rationally. Some can say this is just a flash in the pan, this whole socialism thing. But if we actually go to this raw story here, hold on for a second. Let me see. I have to. Okay, so this is the joys of actually doing stuff live. So wait a second. No, that's not it. Okay, well that's fine. Okay, good. I was able to get that off the screen. Sorry about that. So Ross Story actually put in a big bad socialism ? America already has wildly popular socialist programs, and even Trump's worshiping right-wingers love them. That is wrong. Okay, I hear this all of the time, and this whole article goes over the typical arguments for socialism. Oh, it's because we have Social Security and Medicare. Yeah, guess what? We pay into Social Security. Medicare is for older citizens, senior citizens. It's part of their Social Security. It's what they get. It's an entitlement. It's like once you get a certain age, you should be able to be taken care of because you're not working anymore. You've paid into the system. Public parks is part of socialism. I mean, look, I've heard so many arguments for socialism. Well, we already have socialism here. No, we are living under a constitutional republic. We do have certain systems that are there for the benefit of the people, just as much as road work is for the benefit of the people. You don't have regular citizens going out there and doing that. You have private companies that have to bid for contracts to win those contracts to build these things. That's not how socialism works. Socialism works when the government takes over everything. The government sets the price on everything. The government controls all of business decisions. And a few people at the top are the ones that make all the money. So remember when Michael Moore did his land breaking, if you want to call, documentary on the healthcare system in Cuba? I watched that and I was like, wow, this is really interesting. Of course, that was a long time ago before I kind of woke up. So the Turning Point USA, now I'm not going to play this entire thing. I'll play a few clips of this, but let me first explain what they did. If you go to Google and you Google Cuba and stuff like that, you're going to see a lot of really colorful pictures. You're going to see a lot of classic cars. You're going to see a lot of beautiful women and all this kind of stuff. People having a good time, drinking Coronas, And all of this is straight up propaganda. It's propaganda because that is not what's happening and what has happened to Cuba. Because Cuba is a socialist, and I would dare to venture to say it's a communist country. People that have been living there have been living there for a long time, and they simply just don't know any better. But I'm going to play a few clips of this. I'm not going to play the whole thing because I want you to go actually watch it. It's about a 13, 14-minute long clip. They went to Cuba, and they just kind of just told you what they found and what they saw and what they experienced. Here's a few clips of that.
Once we got on the island, going through customs, once we got our bags, then people came out because we were on their radar, and they go into the back and they're like, we have to take this back and examine it.
They didn't like that there was a drone inside my suitcase.
Yeah.
And because they didn't like that, they took my passport for 7 hours.
Emotionally, it went from what is this place, when we were in the line, to getting angry, to getting pretty furious and just screw this place, to then just kind of after hour 5, you're just Stockholm syndrome, okay, I guess I speak Spanish and live in Cuba now.
See everything online prior. This was a wake-up call. That's when we started to realize that Cuba sucks.
So let's do a list of things you can't get in Cuba. Like regular things that you can't get in Cuba.
Water.
Couldn't find water.
Gas,
Can't find gas.
chicken.
Food.
We can't find gas. There's no gas available. Every gas station we go to, shut down.
I had to go grocery shopping because the food was trash and we can't get anywhere, so we'll just go to the grocery store. So we drove over there all together. We pulled up to the grocery store and the gates were closed and there was a line down the street.
Okay, so that was from Turning Point USA. Like I said, I was going to only play a minute or two of that. kind of give a teaser of that. I would highly recommend to do that. I will put a link in the description to go watch that video. I highly recommend it. Share the hell out of that video, because there's just simply too many people in this country don't realize how bad socialism is. And if they have a better idea of what's actually going on in these socialist countries, then maybe they won't support people like Bernie Sanders, who simply wants to bring that at our front door. There's a lot of economists that were even saying that if Bernie Sanders even gets the nomination, that the stock market could drop 30 to 40%. Now, this doesn't mean that it will do that, because there was a lot of people saying that, if Trump gets it, back when Trump was running, that the stock market would completely collapse, and that just didn't happen. Actually, the opposite happened. It went up. But I would have to imagine, right? Trump is a businessman. The stock market and corporations love businessmen who understand how to subvert taxes and so forth. Just being honest, right? But Bernie Sanders is a diehard Cold War era type of socialist, communist. We already talked that the letters he received from Soviet spies congratulating him on his mayoral election. So we already know what Bernie Sanders is about. It's what he's been about. There's no surprise there. There's nothing under that rock. There's nothing to reveal. There's no Wizard of Oz. Bernie Sanders has been very, very open about who he is. Now he's not been very open about how much all of this is going to cost and what it's actually going to do to this country, because he doesn't want you to know. Project Veritas was very good in exposing that through his staffers. They don't want anyone to know what Bernie Sanders really wants or his supporters really want. I don't think his supporters understand what they really want. They don't want socialism. They want free trade capitalism without all the corruption, just like everybody else. It's the best system in the world. But a lot of it's this crony capitalism, the inclusion of the Federal Reserve, the debasement of our currency, the inflation, the constant bailouts of these corporations that should, in all intents and purposes, not exist anymore. That is what people are so upset about. That's what the whole Occupy Wall Street movement was about. No one was paying attention to that anymore. They thought it was going to go away. It's actually came in the back in the form of people in black masks and Antifa and all that kind of stuff. Yeah, if they think it's going to go away, it's not. It's just going to evolve. Okay, so whether Bernie loses or wins, it's going to get worse. Because if Bernie gets screwed out of the nomination, watch out. Watch out, because the Bernie Sanders supporters out there, like I said, and like I've been saying this entire time, they're just not going to put up with it anymore. They're going to be doing something. They're going to be doing something about it. They're going to take it into their own hands. You think that Antifa's bad now? Just wait. Now, if Bernie actually gets the nomination and he loses, same thing. Same thing is going to happen. If he wins, guess what? It's game over. It really is. It's game over. But, I can say that now. And the problem is that if Bernie Sanders does actually win the presidency, let's look far out into the future, all the way to November. But if he ends up getting the nomination, he ends up getting the presidency, then there is a decent chance that none of his stuff will work anyway. But, with the stroke of a pen, executive order, he could do a lot to subvert the Constitution. He could do a lot on banning certain weapons. He could do a lot, especially on the lives of the unborn and abortion rights. He could make all this stuff legal overnight or illegal, however you want to look at it. He doesn't have to pass big things, but it can always get to that point. It really can. There's a lot of things Bernie Sanders can do. So I'm going to leave it there. I'll see you in the next video. Have a great day. Bye.